Welcome, GrayMatter leaders, to our unpublished podcast for GrayMatter Leadership Coaching. I'm so delighted that you've chosen to tune in and invest some of your time today and to engage with us in this conversation that's intended to move you into what we call the leading edge of your life and business as a leader. Here at GrayMatter, we believe you have the power to activate the part of your brain scientifically known as gray matter. And in so doing, you can take yourself out of autopilot thinking and behavior. Now, in case you're wondering, my name is Jeanette. I am the head of sales and communication here at GMC, and I'm also your host during this leadership conversation, which I'm pretty thrilled about. Today, I'm joined by my co-host and our founder of GMC, BJ Gray herself. She's going to walk us through part 2 of a conversation that we started last week, actually, on shame in the workplace and how that shows up. Now, last week when we addressed that, and by the way, I really encourage you to listen to that part 1 of it, because it was almost like the more commonly experienced shame, the one where it shows up in your confidence, it shows up in not speaking your ideas, not communicating effectively. It's a little bit easier to spot, especially when you're building up your career. Today's focus is different, and this one is a bit of a doozy. It actually took me a bit of coaching from BJ herself to understand that this can be or is actually a form of shame, and it shows up in the workplace, whether we're entrepreneurs or employed, doesn't really matter. And what this is goal shame. That's what she calls it. And this is how shame can show up as we are reaching for our dreams and goals, and how we can actually sabotage our own success because we get that promotion and we feel very uncomfortable embracing it, accepting it, feeling worthy of it, and in some ways we actually start self-sabotaging. So stick with us. We're going to make this conversation jam-packed. I know BJ has so much good stuff, though I don't know what it is, but I trust it's going to be good. So without further ado, let me bring out BJ. BJ, welcome to today's Leadership Talk. Are you ready to kick this into high gear?
I'm ready. You really got a good introduction there. Thank you, Jeanette.
I did. I'm getting better. Working hard to get better. Wonderful. So what do you want us to gain? I know this is, what I love about you is the fact that with you, it's always about gaining awareness. It's always about starting from that place of understanding my mind and my brain and where I am as an individual. So what is the awareness you want us to gain when it comes to this topic of shame?
Well, I just want you to pay attention that it's normal to have growth pain when we achieve a goal, or we're goaling for a goal. I guess we do experience this identity crisis, this growth, and we, like you said, feel uncomfortable with it. And there's 2 ways to go about it. There's one way, which is sabotaging it, and there's another way, which is to embrace it and find what you want to believe about it and embrace it without justification. So I would just really want you to pay attention and become aware of growth pain as it refers to shame, versus the kind of shame that you were mentioning that we have when we don't feel confident enough to do something. This one's the opposite. You've done it, or you're on your way to it, but you're experiencing an identity crisis, for lack of better words.
Interesting. Yeah, it totally makes sense to me, but I never thought about it like that. Okay, so give us, what's the main teaching point for today's talk?
Well, the main teaching point, I guess, I was listening to my master coach, where I went to school and learned from. It's Brooke Castillo, and she was kind of framing this as the capacity to have. So
the capacity to have, is that like having like a bigger container? What do you mean when you say capacity?
So like, instead of shaming the success, do you have the capacity? Do you have the wherewithal to have it? Can you frame your mindset around allowing it versus not understanding this new identity, or not being good enough to have this, or feeling uncomfortable that maybe you've attained um, a level of success and others haven't, so you feel guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we create this capacity to have this success without shaming ourselves, without feeling like an imposter?
I see. I see. Okay. I'm all ears.
All right. Well, I was, thinking about the word shame. It's basically thinking something's wrong with me, whether it's on the deficit side or now on the abundance side. And it feels like something's wrong sometimes when you attain this big goal, you don't feel good enough to have this success. So you go through, in business, we go through what I would call leadership loneliness. You've been promoted, or you're on your way to being promoted, and now you kind of feel like, oh, I'm this new person, this new role. And it's, like I said, a little bit of the imposter. You feel a little guilty. You don't know how people are going to relate to you. Do you deserve it? So you go through this leadership loneliness, and you find yourself apologizing for it, or giving excuses, or actually diminishing it. And what I want to make you aware of is there's a way to obtain this goal and accept this goal without making excuses for yourself. And I want to give you an example. The other day, I was talking to one of my best girlfriends who sold her house in Los Angeles. She's retiring and she's moving into her dream life. And she achieved many goals already, including this one, her house appreciating, and she's ready to take this next step, the next version of herself, where many of her friends, like me, are still grinding away with work. And she felt very nervous to share this news with me. She didn't even tell me the house was up for sale, actually, and she was moving. And she felt very nervous because she didn't want to hurt my feelings. And she started giving me some excuses and sort of diminishing this great accomplishment. And I told her, don't worry about me right now. You accept where you're at, and I'm very proud of you and happy for you. You deserve this. But she immediately, this new identity, this new version of herself triggered this place of wanting to sabotage it and wanting to diminish it, because she wasn't yet feeling comfortable or accepting having the capacity to have this new life that she's reached.
I love that. And I so related to that. Well, first of all, I realized that I have suffered from that on many occasions and I didn't even know it. I just realized it. But it's never been very severe for me because I recognized from a very young age that I was okay um, owning my strengths, owning my uniqueness, owning the fact that I'm not afraid to speak up, that I'm maybe bolder than most people that were around me. And I raised my girls to be the same, but I can recall many times, especially when they were younger, they would, at least one of them who's more open, and talkative, she would often come back to me and say, the teacher today told me that I don't need to brag so much about the fact that, you know, I did well.
Hmm.
Or I realize this with a lot of my mommy friends. If I meet them and they have like something new that I really like maybe how Italians are, they're always wearing something very fancy and beautiful. And anytime I say, my God, I love that because I saw it and I really wanted it, most of the women will actually not, they'll diminish it. They'll be like, oh, this is nothing. Or like, oh yeah, my husband just got it for me, it's no big deal. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That is such a big deal. I have to save up for the next year before I can get that. You know what I mean? So is that like similar to what you're saying here, but now you're saying it can show up even like in a promotion, say you go from manager to VP or something like that. It becomes the same thing, just in a different context.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you really do feel awkward and uncomfortable that you've achieved something and maybe others haven't, and that they might want it. And you feel like you're now, you don't want to be grandiose about it. And I just like people to try to not worry about the ideas that other people might have, or what it means to them, and just say, you deserve this accomplishment, and you can hold space for those people to have their opinions, but you don't have to take it on. So don't even project that you might be taking on this space they may be having about you, which we don't even know if they're really having it about you. We make this up in our head. It's so subconscious. But it's okay if other people have ideas or make it mean something. You can just say, this is an accomplishment I deserve, and hold space for them and just not take it on.
So it's about deservability. It's about feeling like I deserve to be in this space or to have this.
Yes.
Like with your friend, she was trying to, in trying to, you know, what she thought was spare your feelings, she was actually sabotaging the good that she's creating. That's
Yes.
kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. And I think
Wow.
it also comes from this place that we're all such people pleasers, and we don't want to.
I think I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
I think this is like something we're taught, like in society. It's just ingrained in us. Because here's the thing: how often have you heard someone just walk to a group of people and say, "Hey, I'm rich," like it doesn't. But then it's normal to find someone say, "Hey, I'm so broke. Can you help me?" And then everyone goes like, "Oh, for you," and they give you sympathy. But the opposite doesn't happen.
Right. No, it doesn't happen. And shame is always internal, but it shows up external. So it holds us back, but it's mostly in our minds where it holds us back. So if you can recognize those thoughts in your mind, and that your brain is just having errors when you feel this growth pain, you know, it's just your brain having errors, then you can embrace the success a little bit easier. And you can embrace having what you have and what you deserve and what you've, you know, reached for. It took a lot of work to get there, and probably a lot of shame to overcome to get there. Now you shouldn't do just the exact same thing, but on the other side. And when you see that your thoughts aren't lining up with the results, so you're having this like cognitive dissonance, right? You're like, hey, I'm here now and this is great, but yet I feel like this because I feel like I can't accept this success yet. I feel like I'm an imposter, or I'm having an identity crisis. Then you got to do that thought work where you line up your thoughts and your feelings to where that result actually is. And that's kind of like starting to bridge your old life and your new life. Some new thoughts that will make you line up with your result. And I think it's just, it's getting over that cognitive dissonance of, I was here, but now I'm here, and you're still thinking about yourself in the old way, and you don't deserve this.
What are some of the ways that this plays out in the context of, you know, suppose someone has just been promoted at work, it's more of like a job promotion. If I'm dealing with this identity crisis or imposter syndrome, and then all of a sudden I'm taken from a junior manager to a senior level or to the executive team or something, and I do not bridge, like you said, if I don't create that bridge, what are some of the negative impacts? What's the what can I start experiencing in a negative way as a result?
You start to worry that something's bad's going to happen. I've seen one of my clients recently, he had this impossible goal and he actually obtained it, or it was actually one day away of obtaining it. And all you could think about was something's wrong with him, something bad's going to happen.
I know this. I know this. You know that
Yeah, you want to
you
identify
normally
it as
say
a
the
failure.
other shoe is gonna fall or something like that.
Yeah, you
When is the shoe
subconsciously
gonna
want to be
drop?
a failure before you fail, right?
Yes.
You almost like feel more comfortable if you identify as the failure before it happens. Yet that's not what's really happening. You're actually getting very close, or you have achieved the goal, and yet you still think, you still worry something bad is going to happen. You still can't have that capacity to have it.
Which obviously creates a lot of negative consequences around that.
Yeah, your brain is flipping back and forth, and you're just wasting so much time worrying. You're just really freaking out. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the solution if I'm stuck in that particular situation? What's the
I,
next step I can take?
you have to prepare the thoughts that might occur. You have to be aware enough. This is where all the self-awareness comes in. You're going through this growth pain, and be aware that there's this moment where you might feel loneliness at the top. You might feel loneliness while you transfer your thoughts into this new identity. And so just prepare for those thoughts and prepare for the behavior that might occur, and realize that this is a trigger that happens with most of us, this goal shame. And don't beat yourself up for it, accept it without justification. Like, start practicing what might happen so that when it does happen, you're not in this flipping of your brain and starting to burn yourself out because you're so worried that something bad's happened or something's wrong with you.
So could it be that there's a part of our brain that is by, environment, family, heredity, whatever you want to call it, that is activated to be very sensitive to shaming? And then maybe there's another part of us that when you mentioned capacity to embrace success, maybe that's a part that needs to be activated, and the only way we can activate it is consciously and gaining the awareness, and then using something like the thought model that you coach on.
Yeah, exactly. The thought model, and just really paying attention to the beliefs you have about yourself, because we have a repeating pattern of these old beliefs that we've been with most of our life. And that's another thing. You've got to switch. You've got to start practicing what you do want to believe when you get to this new place. One thing I do in my business and in my life is I visualize when I have a big, big goal. I visualize that I'm already attained it, and I start acting from that place before it's actually there. It's like I cheat myself into the belief before it's there, so that this goal shame and then this capacity to have isn't such a big learning curve.
I see. Beautiful. Right. Okay. So anything else you want to add for us today that we can implement? I mean, you already gave us so much. You probably have to listen to this a couple of times, but you laid it out for us. Is there anything else I'm missing for today?
No, just like, remember, you get to choose how you want to see yourself, not anybody else.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
You heard it, guys. So that was our leadership conversation with BJ Gray, founder of GrayMatter Leadership Coaching. And as always, we want to hear from you. We want your feedback. We're doing this for you. We're doing our best to help you get the tools, develop the awareness, whether or not you work with us, so that you can actually activate your gray matter and become the leader that we believe you are meant to be. So until our next conversation, BJ, we're doing this again, right?
Yes, we're taking a new topic.
Awesome.
We're going to be anti-fragile. I want us to be anti-fragile.
We're supposed to be anti-fragile.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that next time.
Next time we're talking about anti-fragile. So in terms of what? Give us a hint here. I'm now curious.
In terms of all the uncertainty in our life, how do we show up anti-fragile versus fragile? Because I know so many of us are reacting to so many new situations that are going on within our work, within our homes, around the world. And I want to just point to some ideas about being anti-fragile.
Love it. Okay, you heard it first. So that's what we're talking about on our next conversation. For now, bye.
Bye. Thank you.